Hello everybody, we're standing on the Mount of Olives about halfway down, overlooking the Kidron Valley. And so to our west, across the valley, is the Golden Dome of the Rock and the Old City. And to our south is the City of David. To our down and to the right, if we keep on going down the Mount of Olives, we'll be in the Garden of Gethsemane very soon. But we're standing in front of the Church of DOMINUS FLEVIT, which means the Lord wept. And this is the place where, first of all, we remember that in the Old Testament, King David wept at the Mount of Olives as he was being forced out of the city by the coup d'etat attempt of his son Absalom. We're told that he stopped at the Mount of Olives and he wept. But the Son of David did too. As Jesus was coming into the city, across the Mount of Olives for his final Passion Week, we're told that Jesus stopped here and that he looked out over the city of Jerusalem and that he wept over it. He didn't just softly cry. The idea is in the original language that he wept or he sobbed over the spiritual condition of the city. This was a city that he knew was about to receive him with palm branches and hosannas and messianic expectations. But Jesus knew that those messianic expectations were in many ways very warped, and that there was a lot of misunderstanding among the people about what sort of Messiah he really was. That he wasn't so much a political or a military Messiah, but a spiritual one, and that he was going not to conquer Rome, but to die on a cross. And so this church behind us commemorates that, and you can see in the very architecture of the church itself that there's a teardrop design that's been incorporated into it. It's really beautiful. This is also the place where in Mark chapter 13 and Matthew chapter 24, we're told that during the last week of his life, Jesus came with his disciples in the evening. They had been over on the Temple Mount, just across the way, maybe just a little to the right of where the Dome of the Rock is, where the original temple stood. And that they'd been there and that the disciples were marveling over the temple. Remember, these were a bunch of Galilean country people for the most part. And so they're marveling at coming to the big city, and they're marveling at the wonders of the temple. It was an amazing place. And Jesus says to them, it's about to be destroyed. That soon not one stone will be left on top of another. And so they ask him about that. And there's a whole discourse in those chapters, a lengthy interaction between Jesus and his disciples, where he's answering their questions about how and when this is going to take place. Sometimes we call it the Olivet Discourse, or sometimes we call it the Little Apocalypse, because in it Jesus speaks in very apocalyptic language about what mostly seems to be the destruction of Jerusalem in the not too distant future. So this is a really interesting place to stop and consider the last few days of Jesus' life and the emotions that he brought to this city, and the prophecies that he made to his disciples about what was going to happen just across the valley there in the city of Jerusalem.